What if the person you were supposed to become never existed? Not because life was cruel, but because you stopped. Somewhere between who you were and who you could have been. You gave up, not all at once, but in quiet, forgettable moments, the ones that felt too small to matter. And now you're here, stuck in a body that feels like a cage, in a life that barely feels like yours, wondering when exactly it all slipped away, and if it's already too late to get it back. There's a kind of silence that lives inside people. It's not peace, it's not calm. It's the silence that comes when something in you has stopped growing. When the spark that once pulled you forward quietly dies, and no one notices, not even you. You still wake up, you still breathe, you go to work, smile at strangers, scroll past lives you'll never live, but you don't move forward. Not really. You're on autopilot, a ghost with a heartbeat, and maybe that's the most terrifying part, the realization that you've adapted so well to your own stagnation. You don't even recognize it anymore. It wasn't one big failure that broke you. It was the slow erosion of your potential. 1,000 tiny decisions to avoid pain, to stay safe, to numb, to survive. You didn't mean to stop evolving, but you did, because evolution demands discomfort. It asks you to outgrow people, patterns, and places you've built your identity around. And that's terrifying. So you stayed. In relationships that shrank you, jobs that hollowed you out, thoughts that chained you to an older version of yourself. Now you feel the weight, not just of time, but of the self you abandoned to make it here. And still you pretend everything's fine, because admitting you've stalled feels like admitting defeat. But it's not. It's the first real step, and maybe the most important one you'll ever take. This isn't a story about failure. It's a story about forgetting. Forgetting who you are. Forgetting what you came here to do. Because somewhere along the line, you traded evolution for comfort, and you didn't even realize it. That's how it works. Growth doesn't vanish overnight. It slows. It pauses. It flickers until it's quiet enough to ignore. You stopped evolving because you were tired, because life kept hitting you faster than you could heal, because every time you tried to rise, something pulled you back. Disappointment, rejection, shame. And slowly, your ambition turned to hesitation. Your passion turned to distraction. Your confidence turned into a mask you wore just well enough to get by. You stopped evolving because it got too painful to care. Because the cost of transformation started to look like too much loss, and no one told you that not changing comes with its own price. But now you feel it. The regret of unlived potential. The weight of years spent surviving instead of becoming. The echo of dreams that still haunt your quietest moments. This isn't just about success, it's about identity, about purpose, about the quiet war between who you are and who you were meant to be. And if you're honest, you know it. You can feel it. Something inside you has been calling for a long time, asking one question: are you ready to start again? It usually begins with a whisper, a quiet feeling that something's off. You can't name it. You just know that life feels smaller than it should. Like you're living inside a version of yourself that got stuck in time. You look around and everything seems okay. You're not broken, not failing. You're just numb. And that numbness, that's the warning sign no one talks about. It's not sadness that signals the death of growth. It's apathy. You used to dream loudly. Now you whisper wishes under your breath, just in case someone hears you and laughs. You used to chase things, risk things, Now you scroll. You wait. You avoid. Because you've learned that trying means hurting. And hurting, that's a language your nervous system now speaks. Fluently, you tell yourself you're being realistic, but deep down, you're just scared. Scared that if you try again, it'll break you. Scared that you've already peaked. That maybe this lukewarm existence is all there is left. But here's the truth. You didn't stop evolving because you failed. You stopped because no one ever showed you how to heal while growing. You learned to associate change with chaos, so you chose stillness. You built walls and called them boundaries. You lowered your expectations and called it maturity. You silenced your hunger and called it peace. But inside you're starving. Starving for meaning, for motion, for something, anything that reminds you you're still alive. There's a version of you that remembers. The one that once looked at the world with fire in their chest. The one that wasn't afraid to want more, to reach, to fail loud. You buried that version under layers of survival. Bills, heartbreak, noise, but it's still there, waiting for you to ask better questions, to stop numbing the ache and start listening to it, to stop chasing success and start remembering your own becoming. And maybe that's where it begins, with small choices, not dramatic reinventions, just quiet rebellions, like getting up when you want to disappear, saying no when you're expected to stay quiet, moving your body when your brain tells you there's no point. Change isn't cinematic. It's not some sudden awakening. It's messy, uneven, painfully slow. But it is possible. You have to make peace with who you were. You have to mourn the years you lost playing small. And you have to forgive yourself for doing what you had to do to survive. Because maybe you weren't lazy. Maybe you weren't broken. Maybe you were exhausted from carrying versions of yourself that no longer fit. You want to evolve? Start shedding. Shed the guilt, the outdated identities, the need to be understood by people who were never meant to see you. Shed the shame of wanting more, the fear of standing alone, the weight of everyone else's expectations. Because the truth is, evolution is lonely. Not everyone comes with you. Some people will beg you to shrink again, not out of malice, but because your growth threatens their stillness. Let them stay. You have somewhere to be. You stopped evolving because the world taught you to fear your own depth. But here's the thing. Your depth is not your weakness, it's your weapon, it's where your real transformation begins. The version of you that's still waiting, they don't need you to be perfect, they need you to be brave enough to want again, to feel again, to fall and still choose forward. This is the part no one sees, the behind-the-scenes agony of transformation, where you question everything, where your old self fights to stay alive, even as your future self screams to be born. You don't need to see the whole path. You just need to take the next honest step, not for applause, not for validation, but because some part of you knows you were never meant to stay here. You don't hate your life. You hate how far you've drifted from who you were supposed to become. You wake up tired, not from sleep, but from pretending you're okay. You scroll through other people's wins, wondering when you disappeared from your own story. You feel guilty for wanting more, and ashamed for settling for less. You smile in public, but grieve in silence. You've mastered survival, but forgot how to live. You left parts of yourself behind to be loved by people who never saw you. You sacrificed your evolution for belonging, and now, you don't even recognize your own reflection. There comes a moment when you have to choose. not between success or failure, but between becoming or remaining. Because evolution doesn't happen by accident. It demands intention. It asks you to confront what you've avoided, to question what you've normalized, to break patterns you once called identity. It asks you to disappoint others in order to finally stop disappointing yourself. Most people will never evolve, not because they can't, but because staying broken feels safer than rebuilding. But you're not most people. You're here, still listening, still breathing, still capable of more. And if you're willing to be uncomfortable, to be misunderstood, to be alone for a little while, you'll remember. You'll remember what it felt like to want something again, to chase it, to burn for it, to rise, not as who the world wants, but as who you really are. The truth is, you never stopped evolving. You just got quiet. You stopped feeding the part of you that grows in the dark, but it's still there, still alive, still waiting. And maybe this is your moment, not a dramatic comeback, not a perfect reinvention, just a decision to move forward, to grow through the grief, to become again. Because no matter how far you've strayed, you are not lost, you are just returning. And that version of you, the one who never gave up, they're closer than you think. If this reached a part of you you thought was gone, don't let it fade. Sit with it. Share it with someone still pretending they're fine. And maybe, just maybe, let this be the beginning of your return.